Few movie cars have achieved the cultural icon status of the black and gold Trans Am, from Smokey and the Bandit. To most audiences, it was the unstoppable star of high-speed chases, daring jumps, and Hollywood mischief. But behind the sleek paint and roaring V8 lies a surprising truth. Much of what made the car legendary was carefully orchestrated illusion, from stunt modifications and deceptive model years to engine sounds borrowed from another brand entirely. GM's huge Trans Am gamble. It is impossible to picture Smokey and the Bandit without that iconic black and gold Trans Am. But the single most recognizable part of the movie almost never made it to the screen. When director and famed stuntman Hal Needham first saw an advertisement for the upcoming Trans Am, he knew he had found the Bandit's perfect co-star. The problem was that he had to actually get General Motors to give him the cars. When he pitched the film to GM executives, they were incredibly hesitant. His script called for high-speed chases, massive jumps, and all-around destructive driving. GM was understandably concerned about handing over a fleet of their brand-new, valuable muscle cars, just to see them reduced to scrap metal for an action comedy. They simply didn't see the value in it. This forced Hal Needham to put his own credibility on the line. He had to personally negotiate and essentially guarantee that the film would be a massive hit. He promised them that the exposure would be so huge, it would drive Trans Am sales through the roof. Needham was effectively turning his movie into the world's greatest car commercial, betting his entire production on that promise. Thankfully, GM reluctantly agreed to provide the cars. The film, of course, became a cultural phenomenon, and Pontiac dealers were suddenly flooded with customers demanding their own Bandit car. It was one of the most successful and initially most reluctant product placements in history. The voice was a V8 imposter. When you think of the Bandit's Trans Am, one of the first things that comes to mind is that incredible, throaty engine roar. It's the sound of pure, raw muscle, and it defined every single chase scene. But there's a fascinating piece of movie magic at play here. The sound you're hearing doesn't belong to the Trans Am. This detail often surprises car enthusiasts. The film's director, Hal Needham, and the sound editing team felt that the actual Pontiac Vive 8 engine, while perfectly fine for the street, just wasn't aggressive or cinematic enough for a lead car. It didn't have the intimidating presence they needed to sell the Bandit's high-stakes getaway. So they performed an auditory swap. The sound you actually hear echoing through the film is a recording of a 1955 Chevrolet Custom. This wasn't just any random sound effect pulled from a library. It was already a piece of Hollywood legend. This exact 55 Chevy engine note had been the star sound in other massive car movies, including George Lucas's American Graffiti and the cult classic Two-Lane Blacktop. The sound team clearly believed this specific V8 roar was the definitive sound of American muscle, possessing a deeper rumble that the modern, emissions-controlled Pontiac engine lacked. So, while the car on screen was 100% Pontiac, its iconic voice was pure, classic Chevrolet, dubbed in during post-production to create the perfect big-screen personality. A clever automotive disguise. Everyone knows the Bandit's car as the iconic 1977 Pontiac Trans Am. The film's 1977 release date and all the marketing that followed cemented this specific model year in popular culture. But the cars you actually see getting punished on screen are in fact cinematic imposters. The film's production schedule created a significant timeline problem for Pontiac. Director Hal Needham started shooting in 1976. But the auto manufacturer had not yet begun full production of their brand new 1977 Trans Am. The updated models simply weren't available in the quantity needed for a demanding, stunt-heavy movie, especially not for a crew that planned to destroy them. Pontiac, realizing the massive marketing potential of the film, couldn't let this opportunity pass. They came up with a clever and slightly deceptive solution. They supplied the production with a fleet of the previous year's 1976 models. This donation, however, came with one major condition. The film crew had to cosmetically alter every single car to look identical to the upcoming 1977 version. This involved swapping out the entire front end, including the grille and the new quad headlight design, to match the aggressive new fascia Pontiac was about to launch. So, every jump, every tire-squealing U-turn, and every high-speed chase was performed by a 1976 model wearing a 1977 disguise. It was a brilliant bit of marketing that successfully fooled audiences and turned the film into the single greatest advertisement for a car that technically wasn't even in it. a high-speed sneak peek. One of the most defining features of the Bandit Trans Am is its aggressive face. That slanted V-shaped nose and the 4 distinctive rectangular headlights became legendary. But this look was a complete departure from the previous year's model, which featured the more traditional round headlights. This cosmetic change was the entire reason for Pontiac's gamble. As we covered, the film was shot in 1976 using 76 models, but the manufacturer insisted the cars promote the brand new 1977 look. This meant the film's production crew had to perform significant surgery on the cars. They physically removed the entire 1976 front end and grafted on the new 1977 front clips that Pontiac supplied. This included the new sloped nose, the modified hood scoop, and, most importantly, the quad rectangular headlight assemblies. The result was a brilliant marketing coup. When Smokey and the Bandit hit theaters in 1977, millions of audience members were getting their very first look at Pontiac's new design. Not in a quiet showroom or a magazine ad, but watching it fly through the air and outrun the law. It was a massive, high-speed sneak peek that perfectly showcased the car's fresh, modern, and aggressive new attitude. This look became so famous that it's impossible to imagine the Bandit driving anything else. Success that stalled progress. The impact of Smokey and the Bandit on Pontiac's sales wasn't just impressive, it completely rewrote the company's production timeline. The film's release in 1977 triggered a sales explosion that no one at General Motors could have predicted. Demand for the second-generation Trans Am skyrocketed, with fans rushing to dealerships to own a piece of what they saw on the big screen. By 1978, Pontiac sold over 93,000 Trans Ams, an all-time record that made the car one of the hottest performance models in America. Those numbers didn't slow down in 1979 either, keeping the production lines at full throttle. Originally, Pontiac had planned to launch the third-generation Firebird around 1980, introducing a sleeker, more fuel-efficient design to keep up with changing automotive trends. But with the Trans Am selling better than ever, there was no reason to change the winning formula. Management made the strategic decision to postpone the next generation entirely, allowing the second-generation model to continue dominating the market for several more years. That delay lasted until 1982, when the new Firebird finally debuted. In the meantime, the Bandit-era Trans Am became more than a car. It became a cultural symbol of speed, charisma, and rebellion. Its runaway success proved that sometimes, the best business move isn't to innovate immediately, but to ride the wave of perfection a little longer. The Bandit effect in numbers. Director Hal Needham's initial promise to General Motors that the film would help sell cars turned out to be one of the biggest understatements in automotive history. The movie's 1977 release didn't just give the Trans Am a minor boost. It triggered an explosive multi-year surge in demand that shocked the entire industry. The sales figures from those years paint a vivid picture. In 1977, the year the film was released, Pontiac sold 68,745 Trans Am units. This was already a very healthy number for a specialty muscle car. Then, the Bandit effect took hold. In 1978, the first full year after audiences fell in love with the car, sales leaped to an incredible 93,341 units. The momentum didn't stop there. In 1979, demand spiked again to an all-time record of 117,108 Trans Ams sold. The sales for Pontiac's Halo car had nearly doubled in just 2 years, all because of its role in a single movie. The film had perfectly captured a cultural fantasy. The combination of Burt Reynolds' charming anti-authority character and the sleek black and gold Trans Am created a powerful aspirational package. For thousands of buyers, purchasing that car was the most direct way to feel a little bit like the Bandit, cementing the car's legendary status with hard sales numbers. The Bandit's last push. Director Hal Needham was a legendary stuntman before he was a director, so it was a given that the cars in Smokey and the Bandit were going to have a rough time. But the level of mechanical destruction reached a critical point by the end of the shoot. Pontiac supplied the production with 4 Trans Ams. 3 of those cars were designated as stunt vehicles, and they were put to work immediately. They were launched off ramps, skidded through dirt, and put through grueling high-speed chases until they were, as planned, completely destroyed. The 4th car was the Hero car, intended for close-ups and promotional work. It was supposed to stay pristine, but as the stunt cars were progressively written off, The crew had to start using this last car for more demanding scenes just to finish the movie. By the time they reached the final day of shooting, this last surviving Trans Am had also been pushed past its breaking point. It was so battered that it simply wouldn't start. For the very last scene where the car needed to appear, the crew had no other option. They used another car to physically push the dead Trans Am into frame, all while Burt Reynolds sat behind the wheel, acting as if he had just completed his epic run. The unstoppable hero car of the film had to be shoved into its final shot like a broken-down sedan, Reynolds' own Bandit car. After solidifying your status as the coolest movie star on the planet, it's only natural that you'd want to keep the car that helped you do it. Burt Reynolds was so synonymous with the Trans Am that he needed one in his personal garage. But he didn't just keep one of the battered, leftover film cars, nor did he simply get a stock 1977 model. His personal Bandit was a special tribute vehicle, a 1979 Trans Am built specifically for him by a company called Bandit Movie Cars. This was a meticulous, high-quality recreation that served as a testament to his iconic role. This personal car was also arguably an improvement over the originals. It was equipped with the desirable 6.6-liter, 400 cubic inch V8. By 1979, this engine was tuned to produce 220 horsepower. This is the fascinating part. That 220 horsepower rating was actually slightly higher than the factory output of the 1977 cars used in the film, which were rated closer to 200 horsepower. Reynolds' personal Trans Am wasn't just a prop. It was a bespoke, more powerful machine built to live up to the high-performance legend that he had created on screen. It became a cherished possession that symbolized his deep connection to the role. A near disaster on set. Hal Needham's background as a stuntman meant the action in Smokey and the Bandit felt incredibly real, mostly because it was. The crew constantly pushed the limits of what was safe, and one stunt in particular nearly ended in tragedy. Burt Reynolds vividly recalled the incident. The production had staged an elaborate jump where the Trans Am was supposed to launch over a wall. The plan was for the car to land neatly in an adjacent baseball field where a game was being played, and then calmly drive around the players as part of the scene. However, during the execution of the jump, the stunt went horribly wrong. According to Reynolds, the stunt double for Sally Field's character panicked at the crucial moment. This hesitation caused a major miscalculation in the car's speed or angle. Instead of landing safely in the field, the Trans Am overshot its mark completely. It sailed wildly through the air, flying entirely over the intended landing zone and, terrifyingly, right over a group of children who were on the other side. Reynolds, a veteran of high-risk movie sets, stated that it was the first time he had ever seen such a dangerous and uncontrolled accident. It was a heart-stopping moment that went far beyond the planned chaos of the script. Miraculously, the car landed without hitting anyone, and no one was injured. It's a chilling reminder that the film's most exciting moments were often just inches away from real-world disaster. A rocket-powered bridge jump. The legendary Mulberry Bridge jump is one of the most famous and spectacular stunts in movie history. It's the moment the Trans Am truly feels invincible, soaring through the air to evade the law. But to get that shot, the stunt crew went far beyond simple horsepower. Director Hal Needham needed the car to clear a massive, dangerous gap, and he needed it to look incredible doing it. He couldn't risk the car coming up short, and the Trans Am's standard V8 engine wasn't going to be enough to guarantee the car would fly. So, the crew turned to an extreme solution. The specific Trans Am designated for this jump was reportedly fitted with a booster rocket. This wasn't a visual effect. It was a real, hardcore 1970s stunt technique. The rocket was designed to provide a powerful short burst of thrust at the precise moment of takeoff. This massive jolt of extra speed ensured the Trans Am would have the velocity and lift needed to clear the gap, resulting in the dramatic, high-arcing leap we see in the final film. Of course, this modification was a one-way ticket for the car. The combination of the rocket-powered launch and the brutal, unceremonious landing on the other side completely destroyed the vehicle, turning it instantly into scrap metal. It was an extreme measure, but it perfectly captured the film's go big or go home approach to stunt work. Reynolds' Trans Am auction. The connection between Burt Reynolds and the Trans Am is so powerful that it creates incredible value, even for cars that weren't in the original movie. When the star's personal Bandit car went up for auction, the collector world showed just how much that legacy is worth. This specific car wasn't one of the 1977 models used or destroyed during filming. It was a 1979 Trans Am, meticulously customized as a tribute for Reynolds by a company called Bandit Movie Cars and later gifted to him. It was, in essence, his personal copy of the legend he helped create, equipped with the 6.6-liter V8. When this car crossed the auction block in 2019, it caused a frenzy. The bidding didn't stop until it reached a staggering $317,500. To put that price in perspective, a truly perfect concourse condition 1977 Trans Am Special Edition might sell for a fraction of that. This enormous sale price wasn't for a screen-used prop. It was for the provenance. Bidders weren't just buying a black and gold Trans Am. They were buying the one and only Bandit Trans Am that was personally owned by the Bandit himself, a real hard-nosed opponent. The Bandit's Trans Am gets all the glory, but its main adversary was a far more serious machine than the film lets on. Sheriff Buford T. Justice's battered 1977 Pontiac Le Mans wasn't just a standard sedan pulled from a dealership lot, it was a factory-built, high-performance police car. Pontiac donated several of these cars to the production, which were Enforcer police package models. In their own advertisements, Pontiac touted these specific pursuit vehicles as being real hard noses. This wasn't just marketing fluff. To keep up with cars like the Trans Am, the Le Mans Enforcer was equipped with the same 6.6-liter, 400 cubic inch V8 engine. But the upgrades didn't stop there. The package also included a heavy-duty, firm ride and handling suspension, a 1-inch rear stabilizer bar, variable ratio power steering, and upgraded power front disc brakes with 11-inch rear drums. This car was specifically engineered for high-speed pursuits and to take a beating. While Jackie Gleason's comedic portrayal showed the car falling apart, the truth is, the Le Mans Enforcer was a genuine performance threat and, on paper, a surprisingly even match for the Bandit's ride, a stunning automotive comeback. The massive stardom the Trans Am achieved in 1977 is even more incredible when you realize it was a car on life support just 5 years earlier. In 1972, General Motors was so close to killing the entire Firebird line that its survival was a miracle. The early 1970s ushered in the malaise era for American auto manufacturing. New federal smog and safety regulations were forcing engineers to detune engines, and the horsepower-driven muscle car era was dying. It was a perfect storm of low performance, low sales, and a difficult labor environment. The absolute rock bottom for the Trans Am was 1972. A devastating strike at General Motors severely limited production, and the final output for the entire year was less than 1,300 Trans Ams. With those disastrous numbers, the car was seen as a failure. Pontiac, along with Chevrolet and its shared platform Camaro, strongly considered canceling the F-body line entirely. It just didn't seem worth the investment anymore. Somehow, the car survived that internal debate. And just 5 short years later, this automotive afterthought, this relic that was nearly discontinued, was suddenly the undisputed star of the biggest movie of the year. The film didn't just feature a popular car. It created a popular car, single-handedly pulling the Trans Am from the brink of extinction and making it one of the most iconic vehicles in history. A confusing engine call-out. One of the most iconic visual elements of the Bandit Trans Am is the bold, screaming chicken hood decal, complete with the small engine call-out near the shaker scoop. On the movie cars, this decal proudly displayed TA 6.6, indicating the engine's 6.6-liter displacement. At first glance, it looks like a straightforward specification, confirming the power lurking beneath the hood. But this detail masks a curious twist in automotive branding. In reality, the metric TA 6.6 designation hadn't yet been officially introduced on Pontiac Trans Ams at the time of filming. The sticker used in the film was originally associated with an Oldsmobile V8 engine package, which, while similar in displacement, was slightly less powerful than the Pontiac engine installed in the Trans Am. During the late 1970s, as American manufacturers transitioned from cubic inches to liters for engine callouts, there was some crossover and inconsistency in how these labels were applied across GM brands. For the filmmakers in Pontiac, applying the metric decal created a visually modern and authoritative look, even if it wasn't technically accurate for the car's actual engine. It demonstrates the lengths to which the production went to make the Trans Am look every bit the muscle car star, blending real specifications with marketing flair. Police cars outperform Trans Am. The movie's entire premise rests on the Trans Am being an invincible getaway car, while Sheriff Buford T. Justice's Pontiac Lehman's is portrayed as a clumsy, fragile sedan that can barely keep up. This is perhaps the film's biggest mechanical misdirection. Looking at the official specifications, the police car was arguably the superior machine for the chase. Pontiac provided both cars, and both shared the 6.6-liter V8 block, so their base horsepower was comparable at around 200. But the Trans Am was a standard civilian car, designed for a balance of performance and comfort. The Le Mans was a dedicated enforcer police package, purpose-built for high-speed pursuit. This means it was tuned to excel at the very things the Bandit was doing. The Le Mans package included heavy-duty power front disc brakes and larger 11-inch rear drums for better, more consistent stopping power. It also had a much tougher suspension, featuring uprated front and rear springs and a 1-inch rear stabilizer bar, allowing it to handle aggressive cornering and rough roads better than the stock Trans Am. It even had an 80-amp alternator for its police-specific accessories. The Trans Am was a fast sports car, but Sheriff Justice's car was a specialized pursuit vehicle engineered from the factory to endure relentless high-speed abuse, a belated incorrect gift. Given the unprecedented sales boom, you would assume Pontiac was showering Burt Reynolds with gratitude and free cars. They did, in fact, promise him a free 1977 Trans Am as a thank you for the film's incredible success. It was a simple arrangement. If the movie becomes a hit, the star gets the car. Smokey and the Bandit wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural phenomenon that was second only to Star Wars at the box office that year. It single-handedly saved the Trans Am, turning it into Pontiac's most profitable and recognizable car. But Pontiac, despite reaping millions in profits, was surprisingly slow to make good on its promise. Burt Reynolds, the biggest and most bankable movie star in the world at the time, had to wait years for his free car to arrive. It's a baffling piece of corporate follow-through. When a Trans Am finally did show up at his home, it wasn't even the correct car. The film had immortalized the 1977 model with its specific front end, but Pontiac delivered a 1978 Trans Am. While the 1978 was visually similar, it was still the wrong model year. The man who had given Pontiac the greatest marketing gift in its history had to wait years for his reward, only to receive a slightly inaccurate copy of the legend he created. Reynolds accepted the car, but he immediately had it customized to more closely resemble the black and gold icon from the film. One-off press fleet. The entire automotive legend of Smokey and the Bandit exists because director Hal Needham saw a single photograph. He was looking through a Pontiac brochure or magazine, saw the black and gold Trans Am, and knew instantly that it was the Bandit's co-star. But the vehicle in that specific photo wasn't a regular 1977 production model. It was something much rarer and more complicated. The car in that inspirational photo had actually started its life as a 1976 limited edition model, assigned to Pontiac's West Coast press fleet for media reviews. This car was already a gem. It was one of only 110 limited editions built that year, with the most sought-after package. The powerful 455 V8 engine, a 4-speed manual transmission, and T-tops. Pontiac, however, had a marketing problem. They needed to create the sales brochure for the upcoming 1977 model, but the 1977 production line hadn't started yet. Their solution was pure fabrication. They took this rare 1976 press car and performed surgery, grafting the brand new 1977 front end, the sloped nose, quad headlights, bumper, and new decals onto the 1976 body. So the car that captivated Needham and Reynolds was this unique, one-off Frankenstein car, a 1976 or 1977 hybrid built for a single photo shoot. That image, of a car that didn't technically exist yet, was so compelling it inspired the entire film. A pony car's revival. By 1977, the American performance car was in a dark place. This was the heart of the malaise era, an age defined by strict emissions regulations and high gas prices that had drained V8 engines of their horsepower. The golden age of the muscle car was effectively over. The Trans Am was one of the last true pony cars left standing. It still had the classic formula that had defined the segment a decade earlier. A long hood, a short deck, a big V8, and a design that appealed directly to younger buyers. But in reality, its 200 horsepower engine was a shadow of what performance cars had in the late 60s. This is what makes the film's impact so remarkable. The movie didn't rely on the car's actual spec sheet, it sold its image and attitude. Smokey and the Bandit brilliantly advertised the illusion of unstoppable speed. It turned the car into a cultural statement. The focus was entirely on the visual drama. The Y82 Special Edition's black and gold paint, the massive Screaming Chicken hood decal, the gold snowflake wheels, and the T-tops. It was pure automotive theater. The film proved that even in an era of low horsepower, the spirit of the pony car was still incredibly potent. It gave the entire segment a massive psychological boost and cemented the Trans Am as the definitive performance icon of a power-deprived decade, proving that style and charisma could be just as powerful as raw horsepower. A name from the racetrack. The Pontiac Trans Am, widely recognized today for its flamboyant hood decal and its role in Smokey and the Bandit, actually has origins deeply tied to competitive motorsport. The name Trans Am comes directly from the Trans-American Championship Racing Series, sanctioned by the Sports Car Club of America, or SCCA. This championship was designed to highlight the capabilities of production-based performance cars in a highly competitive environment, demonstrating that everyday vehicles could deliver serious racing performance. Pontiac's decision to adopt this moniker for the Firebird's performance variant was a deliberate branding move, signaling that this was no ordinary pony car, but a machine with racing pedigree. When the Trans Am debuted in 1969, it carried that promise into the consumer market, offering aggressive styling, upgraded suspension, and performance-tuned engines that reflected the spirit of the racetrack. Even as regulations in the Malaise era reduced horsepower in the mid-1970s, Pontiac preserved the racing identity through visual cues like prominent hood scoops, spoilers, and specialized decals, reminding buyers that the car was more than just aesthetic flair. The connection between professional racing and a Hollywood action star car is unexpected, yet it underscores Pontiac's clever strategy to market a vehicle that looked the part, carried competitive heritage, and appealed to consumers seeking performance credibility. Flawed promotional Trans Am. One of the most remarkable Trans Ams tied to Smokey, and the Bandit never even appeared on screen, yet it commanded enormous attention in the collector world. This full-size 1977 Trans Am, used exclusively for promotional purposes, was presented as a true Y82 Special Edition, the package that defined the iconic black and gold Bandit look. Outwardly, it was flawless. The deep black paint gleamed, the massive gold Screaming Chicken decal stretched across the hood, and fine gold pinstriping accentuated the body lines. To top it off, Burt Reynolds' signature appeared on the driver's door, a tangible connection to the film that immediately elevated its status and auction value. Yet, upon closer inspection, a curious anomaly emerged. While the car visually checked almost every Y82 box, it lacked the gold-colored machine-turned dash, a defining interior element of the special edition. The true Y82 featured a gold faux engine-turned geometric pattern that adorned the instrument panel bezel, console trim, and door panels, providing a luxurious and distinctive finishing touch. The absence of this detail in a car claiming authenticity is striking, especially for a vehicle valued at $500,000. Collectors overlook this internal flaw, prioritizing the car's cinematic and celebrity provenance over strict factory accuracy. This promotional Trans Am exemplifies how cultural significance, historical association, and star ownership can eclipse technical perfection, creating a paradox where a visually and historically iconic car is simultaneously incomplete in the most fundamental specification of its legendary edition. The Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am is more than just a car. It's a masterpiece of movie magic, lucky timing, and brute force engineering. It's a car that faked its own voice, borrowing the roar from a classic '55 Chevy because its own engine just wasn't mean enough for the big screen. It's a car that was launched over a bridge with an actual rocket booster, all for one legendary shot. And perhaps most ironically, it was a car that was constantly outrunning police sedans that were, on paper, better equipped for the chase. From its near cancellation to becoming a cultural icon that defined an era, the Bandit Trans Am truly is a legend, proving that sometimes the story behind the car is just as fast and wild as the ride itself.